Spunk by Zora Neale Hurston. A giant brown-skinned man sauntered up the street of the village and out into the palmetto thickets, with a pretty woman clinging lovingly to his arm. "Look a there, folks," cried Elijah Mosley, slapping his leg gleefully. "There they go, big as life and brassy as tacks." All the loungers in the store tried to walk to the door with an air of nonchalance, but with small success. "Now, people, Walter," Thomas gasped. "Will you look at him? But that's one thing I likes about Spunk Banks. He ain't scared of nothing, on God's green footstool, nothing. He rides that jog down at Sawmill just like he struts. Round with another man's wife, just don't give a kitty. When Tess Miller got cut to giblets on that circle saw, Spunk steps right up and starts riding. The rest of us was scared to go near it." A round-shouldered figure in overalls much too large came nervously in the door, and the talking ceased. The men looked at each other and winked. "Give me some soda water, sarsaparilla, I reckon," the newcomer ordered, and stood far down the counter near the open pickled pig feet tub to drink it. Elijah nudged Walter and turned with mock gravity to the newcomer. "Say, Joe, how's everything up your way? How's your wife?" Joe started and all but dropped the bottle he held in his hands. He swallowed several times painfully, and his lips trembled. "Elijah, you oughted to do nothing like that," Walter grumbled. Elijah ignored him. "She just passed a few minutes ago, gone that way," with a wave of his hand in that direction of the woods. Now Joe knew his wife had passed that way. He knew that the man lounging in the general store had seen her. Moreover, he knew that the man knew he knew. He stood there silent for a long moment, staring blankly, with his Adam's apple twitching nervously up and down his throat. One could actually see the pain he was suffering, his eyes, his face, his hands, and even the dejected slump on his shoulders. He set the bottle down upon the counter. He didn't bang it. He just eased it out of his hands silently and filled with his suspender buckle. "Well, I'm going after her today. I'm going fetch her back. Spunk's gone too fur." He reached deep down into his trouser pocket and drew out a hollow ground razor, large and shiny, and passed his moistened thumb back and forth over the edge. "Talking like a man, Joe. Curse, that's your family affairs, but I like to see grit in anybody." Joe Canty laid down a nickel and stumbled onto the street. Dusk crept in from the woods, and Ike Clark lit the swinging oil lamp that was almost immediately surrounded by candle flies. The men laughed boisterously behind Joe's back, and they watched him shamble woodward. "You oughta not to said what you did to him, Lige. You look how it worked him up," Walter chided. "And I hope it did work him up. 'Tain't even decent for a man to take like he do. Spunk will show kill him. I don't know. You never can tell. He might turn up and spank him for getting in the way. But Spunk wouldn't shoot no unarmed man. That razor he carried he ain't gonna run Spunk down and cut him. And Joe ain't got the nerve to go up to Spunk with it, knowing he totes that Army 45. He makes that break out of here to bluff us. He's gonna hide that razor behind the first likely palmetto root and sneak him back home to bed. Don't tell me nothing about that rabbit-foot colored man. Didn't he meet Spunk and Lena face to face one day last week and mumble something to Spunk about letting his wife alone? What did Spunk say?" Walter broke in. "I like him fine, but 'tain't right the way he carries on wid Lena Canty, just 'cause Joe's timid about fighting. You wrong there, Walter. 'Tain't 'cause Joe's timid at all. It's 'cause Spunk wants Lena. If Joe was a passel of wildcats, Spunk would tackle the job just the same. He'd go after anybody he wanted the same way. As I was saying a minute ago, he told Joe right to his face that Lena was his. Call her, he says to Joe. Call her and see if she'll come. A woman knows her boss, and she answers when he calls. Lena, ain't I your husband? Joe sort of whines out. Lena looked at him real disgusted. But she didn't answer, and she don't move out of her tracks. Then Spunk reaches out and takes hold of her arm and say, Lena, use mine. From now on, I works for you and fights for you, and I never wants you to look to nobody for a crumb of bread, a stitch, cloth, or a shingle to go over your head. But me, as long as I live, I'll give you the lumber for our house tomorrow. Go home and get your things together. That's my house, Lena speaks up. Papa, give me that. Well, says Spunk, don't give up what's yours. When you's inside, don't forget you's mine, and let no other man get out his place with you. Lena looked up at him with his eyes so full of love that they was running over, and Spunk seen it, and Joe seen it too, and his lips started to tremble, and his Adam's apple was galloping up and down his neck like a racehorse. I bet he's wore out half a dozen Adam's apples since Spunk's been on the job with Lena. That's all he'll do. He'll be back here after while swallowing and working his lips like he wants to say something and can't. But didn't he do nothing to stop him? No, not a frazzling thing, just stood there. Spunk took Lena's arm and walked off just like nothing ain't happened. He stood there gazing after them till they was out of sight. Now you know a woman don't want no man like that. I'm just waiting to see what he's going to say when he gets back. But Joe Canty never came back. Never. The men in the store heard the sharp report of a pistol somewhere distant in the palmetto thicket, and soon Spunk came walking leisurely, with his big black Stetson set at the same rakish angle, and Lena clinging to his arm. He came walking right into the general store. Lena wept in a frightened manner. Well, Spunk announced calmly, Joe come out there with a meat axe and made me kill him. He sent Lena home and led the men back to Joe. Joe crumpled and limp with his right hand still clutching his razor. See my back. My clothes cut clear through. He sneaked up and tried to kill me from the back, but I got him. Got him good. Shot first, Spunk said. The men glared at Elijah accusingly. Take him up and plant him in Stony Lonesome, Spunk said in a careless voice. I don't want to shoot him, but he made me do it. He's a dirty coward jumping on a man from behind. Spunk turned on his heel and sauntered away to where he knew his love wept in fear for him, and no man stopped him. At the general store later on, they all talked of locking him up till the sheriff should come from Orlando. But no one did anything but talk. A clear case of self-defense. The trial was a short one, and Spunk walked out of the courthouse to freedom again. He could work again, ride the dangerous log carriage that fed the singing, snarling, biting circle saw. He could stroll the soft, dark lanes with his guitar. He was free to roam the woods again. He was free to return to Lena. He did all those things. What you reckon, Walt? Elijah asked one night later. Spunk's getting ready to marry Lena. Nah. Why? Joe ain't had time to get cold yet. Know how I didn't figure Spunk was the marrying kind. Well, he is, rejoined Elijah. He done moved most of Lena's things and her along with him over to the Bradley house. He's buying it, just like I told you all right. He in here the night Joe was killed. Spunk's crazy about Lena. He don't want folks to keep on talking about her. That's the reason he's rushing so. Funny thing about that bobcat wants it. What bobcat, Lige? I ain't heard about none, ain't there? Well, night before last was the first night Spunk and Lena moved together, and just as they was going to bed, a big black bobcat, black all over, you hear me, black, walked around the house and howled like a 40, and when Spunk got his gun and went to the window to shoot it, he says it stood right still and looked him in the eye and howled right at him. The thing got Spunk so nervous that he couldn't shoot. But Spunk says 'twain't no bobcat nohow. He says it was Joe done sneaked back from hell. Humph, sniffed Walter. He ought to be nervous after what he done. I reckon Joe come back to dare him to marry Lena or to come out and fight. I bet he'll be back any time again, though, too. Now, what I think, Joe was a braver man than Spunk. There was a general shout of derision from the group. That's a fact, went on Walter. Look at what he done. Took a razor and went out to fight a man. He no-toted a gun and was a crack shot, too. Another thing, Joe was scared of Spunk, scared plumb stiff, but he went just the same. It took him a long time to get his nerve up. 'Tain't nothing for Spunk to fight when he ain't scared of nothing. Now Joe come back to have it out with the man that's got all he ever had. Y'all know Joe ain't never had nothing, nor wanted nothing besides Lena. It must have been a hat, 'cause ain't nobody never seen no black bobcat. Another thing, cut in one of the other men. Spunk was cussing a blue streak today, 'cause he load that saw was wobbling almost 'cause I'm once. The machinist come, looked it over and said it was all right. Spunk must have been leaning towards it some. Then he claimed somebody pushed I'm, but 'twa'n't nobody close to I was glad when knocking off time come. I'm scared of that man when he gets hot. He'd beat you full of buttonholes as soon as he's look at yer. The men gathered the next evening in a different mood. No laughter, no bandage this time. Look, Lige, you going to set up with Spunk? No, I reckon not, Walter. Tell you the truth, I'm a little bit skittish. Spunk died cussing, he did. You know he thought he was out of life. Good Lord, who'd he think done it? Joe Canty, how come? Walter, I believe I will walk up that away and set. Lena would like it, I reckon. What did he say, Lige? Elijah did not answer until they left the lighted store and were strolling down the dark street. I was loading a wagon with Scantlin right near the saw when Spunk fell on the carriage. Before I could get to him, the saw got him in the body. Awful sight. Me and Skint Miller got him off, but it was too late. Anybody could see that. The first thing he said was, he pushed me, Lige. The dirty hound pushed me in the back. He was spitting blood in every breath. We laid on the sawdust pile with his face to the east so that he could die easy. He heft my hand till the last, Walter, and said it was Joe, Lige. The dirty sneak shoved me. He didn't dare come to my face, but I get the son of a wood louse soon I get there and make hell too hot for him. I felt him shove me. That's how he died. Spirits can fight. There's powerful tussle going on somewhere over Jordan, 'cause I believe Joe's ready for Spunk and ain't scared any more. Yes, I believe Joe pushed I'm myself. They had arrived at the house. Lena's lamentations were deep and loud. She had filled the room with magnolia blossoms and gave off a heavy, sweet odor. The keepers of the wake tipped about whispering in frightened tones. Everyone in the village was there, even old Joe Canty, Joe's father, who a few hours before would have been afraid to come within 10 feet of him, still leering triumphantly down upon the fallen giant as if his fingers had been the teeth of steel that laid him low. The cooling board consisted of 3 16-inch boards on sawhorses. A dinghy sheet was his shroud. The women ate heartily of the funeral baked meats and wondered who would be cleanest next. The men whispered coarse conjectures between guzzles of whiskey. And that's the end of, what is it called? Spunk by Zora Neale Hurston. Yes, I like that story. I don't fully understand everything that happened because I have poor reading comprehension. That's what I say at the end of each of these stories I read on here because I'm really bad at reading. So it sounds like they were fighting over a woman, and one of them shot the other one. They got into a knife fight or whatever. But one of them shot the other one. And it seems like a lot of the pain in life comes from jealousy, and then they're worried about like his ghost coming back to haunt him. Or maybe the other one died in a what's it called, a machinist mill, because the ghost haunted him. Again, I have really bad reading comprehension skills. I have like the mind of like a second grader, but like it sounded like the ghost killed him in a machinist death at the factory he was working at. But so it's like karma, or it's jealousy, or maybe it was more like when one person hurts one person, another person gets revenge by hurting the person who hurt the other person, and it goes on and on and on. Again, I'm really bad at reading, so that's sort of what I got. It was just ghost, or just another person who did it. And the revenge goes on and on. A lot of life comes from jealousy. A lot of the pain in life comes from jealousy, and it's really competitive in life to woo someone. It's really competitive to woo someone, and people, a lot of men drive themselves into the ground by worrying about how to woo someone, and it is a lot of men's demise because they worry about it so much. They're so afraid to be asexual for a week of their lives that they will go to extremes and be willing to hurt someone because they're so desperate to woo someone. That's what I got from the story, is the dangers that people go for sexual pleasure. That's kind of a dark story, but it's also realistic in the sense that people do put themselves in risky business by trying to find that pleasure that they seek and to fill their biological need. They put themselves into risky business, and they do hurt themselves. But that's also kind of like a morality tale, as far as like, you don't want to go to extremes to try to woo someone, because you don't have to view it as like a super competitive thing. You don't have to view it like it's like a super like, oh, I have to like, go off the rails to like, like you have to hurt someone else to get someone to like you. That doesn't make any sense, because that's not real love. Real love isn't hurting someone else to get their lover to like you, to get their companion to like you. That's not how you woo someone. You don't woo someone by hurting someone else. That's the opposite, and that's not real love. That's not real affection. That's not real, A lot of this is sort of like a morality tale of the extremes people will go to try to woo someone, but in reality, you don't need to go to those extremes because you don't need it that badly. Just because it's a biological need doesn't mean you really need it, There's biological needs and there's biological needs, and I get that you're not going to be satisfied if you don't feel those biological needs, but you don't really need it. It's more of a want than a need, you know what I mean? It's more of a want. So you don't have to go that far, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a deal. That's all I'm saying. The story's sort of like a morality tale. You don't want to go that far. Take a deep breath. Slow down, buddy. It's not that serious. Life isn't that serious. You don't have to live your life in one day. You don't have to throw everything away just to live your life in one day. Just take it slow. Take it slow. Take a deep breath. So I give story 2 thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of the story? I liked it. It was okay. It wasn't amazing. I thought the last Zora Neale Hurston story was better, but I thought this one was okay. It was alright. But these stories are just alright. I think she's an alright author, but I'll probably keep reading her because I like reading people from diverse backgrounds so that I've become more educated. So I'll probably keep reading her in the future. Probably what other stories she has. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think about her? What did you think about this story? I guess it takes place in Central Florida in the 1920s, 1925. Please subscribe to this channel to be part of the community. Please like this video, it really helps out the channel a lot. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.